Right, welcome back, everybody. It's almost 20 minutes before 8. Do stay tuned to Morning Live. We're hoping to have a conversation with our Intelligence Minister, David Mhlobo, very shortly about those accusations from Al Jazeera's documentary on rhino poaching. He'd like to tell his side of the story, so please do stay tuned. We're trying to get him on the line. But right now, let's focus on your spending power and how you're paying back your debt. In their South African Consumer Credit Index, that's TransUnion, says payment defaults on new credit accounts for the third quarter of this year have fallen slightly. Although the index still states that South African households have a problem maintaining a positive cash flow. Also, the world is entering uncertainty following Donald Trump being elected president of the United States of America, the world's largest economy and an important trading partner for South Africa. So to unpack all these financial stats and the outcomes for us, we've got in studio with us Tim Frost, who is the Vice President for Product Management and Development at TransUnion. Good to have you. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thanks, Leah.
All right.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, let's, before we get into our consumer credit ratings and all of that, let's talk about Donald Trump and what it is meaning for the world. I mean, even the financial report, that I was giving this morning, we were saying interest rates, depending on a Trump presidency, we're not too sure where we are going. How detrimental or positive is the effect of a new US president on us?
Sure, that's a big question.
It's a big one. And one that everyone's asking because people want to know what it means for us as South Africans.
Yeah, I think obviously from the global economic perspective, one hopes that we're going to maintain relations with the US in a positive sense. I think everybody's worried about kind of where the US economy is going to go, what the policies are going to be, etc. But, from a South African point of view, I think that story kind of sometimes drowns out what's happening locally. And I think, we need to keep a focus on our own challenges and opportunities. Obviously, we're looking at things like the interest rate, we're looking at the exchange rate. Obviously, we want to keep the exchange rate stable. And, really looking at creating jobs and hopefully FDI, so foreign direct investment, is not hit by a Trump presidency. All those things play a factor. But really, I think our own economy is, in a challenging position. And we certainly need to keep our eye on the South African opportunities and keep our eye on the ball here.
Yeah, because he explicitly said in his campaign that he wants to end many free trade agreements. Obviously, this is including AGOA. And if some of these agreements are to be cancelled, this is not good for us. We've got about 60,000 jobs at least that would be on the line for something like this. I think AGOA is intact until 2025, or is it something like that? But, he has been quoted as saying anything that's not good for America, we're not going to pursue. He's a businessman.
Yeah, absolutely. And, unfortunately, I think protectionism of an economy has been his stance. He is looking to try and dismantle some of those things that he perceives as being bad for the US. Again, I think, it's telling that he didn't really mention Africa much at all through his campaign. He talks about Europe and other parts of the world, but not so much Africa. So, I think, we need to try and reach out. I know that President Zuma has reached out, etc., and obviously we need to try and keep those bilateral relations, etc., with the US intact, and obviously hope for those agreements to continue where they're beneficial to us as well.
Yeah, certainly. And we're heading into the silly season right now, and all of us are going to go with those beautiful little plastic cards of ours and buy things that we suddenly think we can afford, but we can't really afford, and say, don't worry about it. Let the bank worry about it. Yeah, right. It's never as simple as that. Even though you've come out saying that we're seeing that debt levels are coming down a little bit, people are paying off their debts more, but talk to us about that finding. Yeah,
look, I think it's quite surprising given the context of the economy. The TransUnion Consumer Credit Index basically measures whether consumer credit has a positive outlook and is improving or is in a deteriorating position. It's kind of at the break-even point at the moment. It's 49 on a scale of 0 to 100, so it's slightly negative.
Yeah.
But to be honest, it's kind of the same as Q2, so it hasn't really moved that much. From a debt repayment point of view, what we do is we take all of the accounts that we measure as a credit bureau, and we look at people who are year-on-year movement, who are paying their debts, and we look at people who are missing 3 or more payments. And what we've seen is from last quarter to this quarter, an improvement in that. So on a year-on-year basis, we kind of about 2.5% better off. So people are deleveraging, they're paying down debt. Of course, this is also in part because the banks have slowed lending to consumers. So kind of bank lending to households is at its kind of slowest rate of growth for 22 years. So the banks have pulled back. Consumers are probably a bit wary in this economy, tough times, that they've gone through, etc. And they're kind of doing the right thing, I would say, which is, trying to get rid of some of the debt. Yeah,
which is the right thing to do. Yeah. And I know we're always, and I know this is not going to be the last interview we do about this. We keep on trying to educate consumers out there that don't be fooled by these specials that you're seeing suddenly in shops and getting into this problem. Because, I mean, from your experience, when you look at the period we're going into, how badly do people get themselves into debt over this festive season?
It is a challenge. I think, there's always that temptation. Credit is, a way to really pay for things that people want to give one another at Christmas. They want to get through the festive season and have a nice time. It's been a tough year. People want to relax. They want to
live a little.
Live a little, yeah. So, so obviously it's tempting, and it's tempting to borrow on personal loans. It's tempting to borrow on credit cards, and that is a challenge. So we are seeing that South Africans have kept the usage of their credit and store cards pretty flat for the last few years. So typically, in terms of an affordability limit, consumers on average are spending about half of what they have as a limit, which is not a bad thing, because obviously if people start to push towards the limit and carrying those credit balances from one month to the next, that's kind of an indication of some distress. I mean, they're not able to pay or repay some of the credit debt. But I would say, people must be very, very careful and wary. I mean, store cards are easy to use and easy to disassociate from cash and from the actual interest that one will pay.
Indeed.
Ultimately, if over the next several months, as you have to pay back what you bought.
Just finally, before we wrap up, obviously we're expecting announcements on our credit rating very, very soon, and also, we've got our ratings agencies that are watching us exceptionally closely.
Yeah.
And this could have a very detrimental effect if, in fact, we are put into that negative category. Obviously, we're a notch above negative as it stands right now in a few of them.
Yeah.
But this economically for you and I, what does that mean? And how should we gear ourselves to not get into further trouble?
Yeah, again, I think the junk status that is threatened is challenging for the macroeconomy, and when the macroeconomy and government borrowing, then costs of that go up. That obviously passes through in a number of ways into the consumer, and I think that's one thing we obviously want to avoid. And Minister Gordhan's done everything he can to try and secure our positive rating. What we really need to do, I think, as consumers again, is take away that noise, go back to the basics, check your credit report. I think that's an important thing that not many South Africans do. We issue about 500,000 as an industry, 500,000 credit reports every year, which is a drop in the ocean when you consider there are 24 million people in South Africa borrowing on credit. And really understanding your credit report and understanding what that contains and making sure that it's accurate is kind of a key thing in terms of managing your financial affairs. Don't worry too much about junk status. I think that's kind of a little bit of a more macroeconomic factor, but focus on the basics.
Okay, let's leave it there. Thank you very, very much. Good advice. Leave it to the basics. Don't get yourself over and above yourselves. Tim Frost is the Vice President for Product Management and Development at TransUnion. Thanks so much for talking to us here on the program.
Thanks, Leanne.
All right, let's take a break here on the program. We'll be with you after this. Do stay tuned.